I thought moving to the Philippines would give me peace. I thought she was different. She said she didn't care about age or money, just love. I believed her. I needed to believe her. Then I opened that dating app and there she was. Same smile, same lies, looking for her next forever. Dennis, you make me feel so safe, Rianne whispered, her fingers tracing circles on my palm as we sat on that rooftop bar in Makati. The Manila skyline stretched out before us, orange and gold bleeding across the horizon. Her eyes caught the last rays of sunlight, and for a moment, I forgot about everything else. The divorce, the loneliness, the desperate move halfway across the world to escape my own failures. You don't know what you mean to me, I said, my voice catching slightly. At 57, I thought I'd lost the ability to feel this way. I've been so lost since I came here. She shifted closer on the wooden bench, her shoulder pressing against mine. You're not lost anymore. We found each other. Her voice was soft, almost fragile. I never thought I could feel this way about someone. I looked down at our joined hands. Hers was so small, so young. Mine was weathered, spotted with age, scarred from years working as a mechanical inspector back in West Virginia. Are you sure about this, Rianne? About us? Why would you ask that? She turned to face me fully, her dark eyes searching mine. Age doesn't matter to me. Money doesn't matter. I just want someone who sees me. Really sees me. I see you, I whispered, meaning every word. You're the most beautiful thing that's happened to me in years. She smiled then, that radiant smile that had captured me from the very beginning. You saved me, Dennis. Before you, I was just surviving. Now I'm living. I pulled her close, breathing in the faint scent of her shampoo mixed with the humid Manila air. 2 years I'd been in this city, bouncing between language barriers and cramped apartments, eating alone in crowded restaurants where everyone spoke faster than I could follow. 2 years of wondering if I'd made the biggest mistake of my life leaving everything behind. But sitting there with Rianne, watching her face glow in the dying light, I felt something I hadn't experienced since before my marriage fell apart. Hope. I love you, I said, the words tumbling out before I could stop them. I know it's too soon, but I do. Her eyes filled with tears. I love you too, so much it scares me. The waiter approached with our bill, and I reached for my wallet, but Rianne's hand stopped me. Let me pay for once, please. You don't need to do that. I want to. You do everything for me. Let me do this small thing. I watched her count out the pesos, her brow furrowed in concentration. She worked so hard teaching English online to Korean kids, sometimes 12 hours a day. She deserved better than this constant struggle. She deserved someone who could give her the world. What are you thinking about? She asked as we walked toward the elevator. Just how lucky I am, I said, and meant it. How lucky we both are. She squeezed my hand 3 times. Our secret code for I love you. I squeezed back 3 times, and she giggled, the sound echoing off the concrete walls. That laugh. God, that laugh could cure anything. Even a broken heart like mine. As we descended toward the street level, the city lights blinking to life around us, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. I felt like I was home. Not in the Philippines, not in Manila, but with her. Finally, after all this time, I was exactly where I belonged. I wasn't even looking for love when Rianne found me. After the divorce, after watching 32 years of marriage dissolve into lawyers and bitter arguments over who got the good dishes, I just wanted to disappear. The Philippines seemed far enough away from everything that had gone wrong, far enough from the memories of what I used to be. Hi, I saw your post in the Language Exchange Manila group, her first message read. You said you want to learn Tagalog. I can help. I'm an ESL teacher. I stared at that message for 20 minutes before responding. Her profile picture showed a young woman with kind eyes and a gentle smile, nothing like the heavily made-up photos that usually populated these groups. She looked real, honest. That would be great, I typed back. I've been here 6 months and still can't order food properly. Haha, where are you from? West Virginia. You probably never heard of it. Coal mining country, right? I studied American geography. Why did you move to Manila? I found myself typing more than I'd planned. Retired early. Needed a change. My ex-wife got everything else, so I figured why not try something completely different. I'm sorry about your divorce. That must have been hard. She didn't ask for money. Didn't immediately suggest meeting. Just talked. We talked for hours that first night. About her students, about my adjustment to life in the tropics, about the difference between American and Filipino humor. She was witty without being cruel, smart without being condescending. "You should try the sisig at the place near Century Mall," she messaged one evening. "But ask for less chili. Americans always underestimate Filipino spice levels." "How do you know I can't handle spice?" "Lucky guess. You strike me as a ketchup on eggs kind of guy." She was right, of course. She was right about most things. We talked every night for 3 weeks before she suggested meeting in person. "There's a good coffee shop in BGC. Quieter than most. We could practice your Tagalog there." I arrived 20 minutes early, nervous as a teenager. When she walked in, I almost didn't recognize her. She was smaller than I'd imagined, more delicate. She wore a simple sundress and flip-flops, her hair pulled back in a ponytail. No makeup that I could see. She looked around uncertainly until our eyes met, and then that smile broke across her face like sunrise. "Dennis?" she asked, approaching my table with careful steps. "That's me." I stood awkwardly, unsure whether to shake her hand or what. She solved the problem by giving me a brief, shy hug. "You're taller than I expected," she said, sliding into the chair across from me. "You're younger than I expected." The words came out wrong, harsher than I meant them. Her face fell slightly. "Is that a problem?" No, I'm 57, Rianne. "You're what, 24? 25? 24. And so what?" She met my eyes directly. "Do you think I'm here because I'm confused about math?" I laughed, despite myself. "I guess not. Good. Because I hate it when people assume I don't know what I'm doing." She opened the menu, her voice returning to its normal warmth. "Now, what kind of coffee do you want? And please don't say black coffee. That's so boring." We talked for 3 hours. She told me about growing up in Quezon City, about her parents who ran a small sari-sari store, about studying education because she wanted to help kids but ending up teaching adults online because it paid better. I told her about my work inspecting machinery in coal mines, about how quiet my house had become after Sarah left, about feeling lost in a country where I couldn't even read the street signs. "It's brave, what you did," she said as we prepared to leave. "Starting over somewhere completely new." "Stupid, more like it." "No, brave." She touched my arm lightly. Stupid would be staying somewhere that made you miserable just because it was familiar. Walking her to the jeepney stop, I felt something I hadn't experienced in years. I felt interesting, not just to myself, but to someone else. Someone who chose to spend 3 hours asking about my life not because she had to, but because she wanted to. "Can we do this again?" I asked as her ride pulled up. "I'd like that," she said, and squeezed my hand once before climbing aboard. As the jeepney disappeared into traffic, I realized I was smiling. Actually smiling, for the first time in months. She had found me when I wasn't even looking. And maybe, just maybe, that was exactly when I needed to be found. The first night Rianne stayed over, she asked if she could borrow my toothbrush. "I know it's weird," she said, standing in my bathroom doorway in one of my old t-shirts. "But I forgot mine, and I can't sleep with dirty teeth." "It's not weird," I lied, handing it over. Everything about this felt weird. Good weird, but weird nonetheless. I was 57 years old, and there was a 24-year-old woman in my bathroom asking to borrow my toothbrush like it was the most natural thing in the world. 3 days later, she showed up with a pink toothbrush of her own. "Where should I put this?" she asked, holding it up like she was asking permission to exist in my space. "Wherever you want," I said, watching her carefully place it in the holder next to mine. 2 toothbrushes. Such a small thing, but it made my chest tight with something between panic and joy. A week after that, she was asking about drawer space. "Just for a few things," she said. "I'm here so much anyway, and carrying everything back and forth is getting annoying." I emptied out the bottom drawer of my dresser, then the bottom shelf of the closet, then half the bathroom cabinet. Each concession felt momentous, like I was rebuilding my life one small space at a time. "Dennis, the Wi-Fi is terrible," she complained one evening, her laptop struggling to connect to her online teaching platform. "My students are complaining about the lag." The next day, I upgraded to the fastest internet package available. Cost me an extra 2,000 pesos a month, but watching her face light up when the connection held steady through a 2-hour session with her Korean students was worth every peso. "You don't have to do all this for me," she said that night, curled up against me on the couch we'd picked out together. Well, I'd bought and she'd picked out. I want to. It makes me happy to make you happy. She was quiet for a long moment. No one's ever done that before. Made me a priority. What do you mean? My ex-boyfriend. He lived with his parents. I could never stay over. And before that, in college, the guys I dated. They wanted me around when it was convenient for them. When they needed something. She traced patterns on my chest with her finger. You make me feel important. You are important. The most important thing in my life. She looked up at me then, her eyes bright with tears. Really? Really? That night, she cried in my arms. Not sad crying, she explained, but relief crying. I've been taking care of myself for so long, she whispered against my shoulder. I forgot what it felt like to have someone take care of me. You don't have to take care of yourself anymore, I said, meaning every word. I'm here now. Promise me, she said, her voice small and fierce. Promise me you won't leave. Everyone always leaves. I promise. I'm not going anywhere. She fell asleep like that, pressed against me, her breathing deep and even. I lay awake for hours, staring at the ceiling, marveling at how quickly my life had changed. 6 months ago, I was eating microwave dinners alone, going days without meaningful conversation. Now I had someone who left her shampoo in my shower, who knew how I liked my coffee, who filled my silences with laughter and stories, and the kind of easy companionship I'd forgotten existed. Her laptop was still open on the coffee table, the screen dark but the power light blinking. In the morning, she'd wake up and teach pronunciation to business executives in Seoul, helping them sound more American while she slowly learned to sound more at home in my life. The irony wasn't lost on me. She was teaching others how to communicate across cultures while we were building our own little world, where words like mine and ours began to blend together. I pulled the blanket over both of us and closed my eyes, listening to her quiet breathing, feeling her heartbeat against my ribs. This was what contentment felt like. This was what I'd been missing for so many years. Not just companionship, but partnership. Not just someone to share a bed with, but someone to share a life with. The toothbrush had been the beginning. Everything else had followed naturally, inevitably, like we'd been moving toward this moment from the very first message she'd sent. Two people finding each other across all the impossible distances that should have kept us apart. Who are you texting so much? I asked one evening, noticing Rianne's fingers flying across her phone screen for the third time during dinner. She looked up, startled. Just students. You know how they are with questions. At 9 o'clock at night? Time zones, she said, but something in her voice had shifted. Korea is an hour ahead. I nodded, but the explanation felt thin. Her students usually contacted her through the teaching platform, not personal messages, and she'd been on her phone more lately. During movies, in bed, even in the bathroom sometimes. The soft glow of the screen lighting up her face in the dark hours of morning. Sorry, she said, setting the phone aside. You were saying something about your friend, Craig? But 20 minutes later, it was buzzing again. She glanced at it, frowned, then excused herself to the bedroom. I heard the murmur of her voice through the thin walls, too low to make out words but intense enough to make my stomach clench. When she returned, her eyes were red-rimmed. Everything okay? Family stuff, she said, not quite meeting my eyes. My sister's having problems with her husband. I wanted to ask more, but she'd already turned back to her phone. I watched her fingers move across the screen, noticed how she angled it away from me, noticed the quick way she'd flip it face down when I moved closer. Rianne, I said gently, did you change your password? Her entire body went rigid. What? Your phone. You used to let me use it when mine was charging. But now, are you spying on me? The words came out sharp, accusatory. Is that what this is about? No, why don't you trust me, Dennis? Her voice cracked. I thought you were different. I thought you understood that I'm not like other girls. The accusation hit me like a physical blow. I do trust you. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have. No, you shouldn't have. She stood up, gathering her phone and her bag. Maybe I should go home tonight. Rianne, please, don't leave. I was just being paranoid. She stopped at the door, her hand on the knob. Paranoid about what? What do you think I'm doing? Nothing. I think you're doing nothing wrong. I'm sorry. I felt pathetic, desperate. Please stay. She studied my face for a long moment, then slowly set her bag down. I don't like feeling like I'm under surveillance. It reminds me of my father. I'm nothing like your father. I know. That's why I'm staying. 3 weeks later, she asked for help with money. We were lying in bed on a Sunday morning, her head on my chest, when she brought it up. I hate asking this, she said, her voice small, but I'm in trouble. My stomach dropped. What kind of trouble? Student loans. I owe 50,000 pesos, and they're threatening to garnish my teaching income. She lifted her head to look at me. I know it's a lot to ask, but could you help me? I'll pay you back as soon as my contract renews next month. 50,000 pesos. About $1,000. Not nothing, but not impossible either. Of course, I said without hesitation. Let me transfer it now. Really? Her face broke into that radiant smile. You'd do that for me? I'd do anything for you. She kissed me then, soft and grateful and full of relief. This is why I love you. You make everything better. I transferred the money that afternoon, watching the numbers change on my banking app. Rianne squeezed my hand 3 times when the transaction went through. I promise I'll pay you back, she said. You don't have to promise anything. We're together. Your problems are my problems. But even as I said it, something nagged at me. The timing felt convenient. The tears had come so easily, so perfectly placed. And when I'd asked to see the loan documents, she'd said they were at her parents' house. You believe me, don't you? She asked, as if reading my thoughts. Of course I believe you. And I did. I had to. Because the alternative was too awful to consider. That the woman I was falling in love with, the woman who'd made me feel alive again after years of numbness, might be playing a game I was too desperate to see. Her phone buzzed on the nightstand. She reached for it, automatically, then caught herself. Go ahead, I said. Answer it. It's not important. But her eyes lingered on the screen. Answer it, I repeated, more firmly. She hesitated, then declined the call. See? Not important. But I'd seen the name on the screen before it disappeared. A man's name. And not one she'd ever mentioned before. Rianne disappeared on a Wednesday. No warning, no explanation, just gone. Her last message to me had been Tuesday night. Good night, Mahal. See you tomorrow. But tomorrow came and went with silence. Rianne? I called Wednesday evening, my voice echoing off the walls of my suddenly empty apartment. Her toothbrush sat in its holder, mocking me. Her clothes hung in my closet like ghosts. By Thursday morning, I was checking her social media obsessively. Her last post was from Monday, a sunset photo with no caption. No activity since then. No responses to my increasingly desperate messages. Maybe she's sick, I told myself, pacing the living room. Maybe her phone broke. But sick people usually manage to send some kind of message, and broken phones could be replaced within hours in Manila. Thursday afternoon, I found myself standing outside the building where she'd told me she lived with her cousin. I'd never actually been inside, never met this mysterious cousin, but I remembered the address from conversations. The security guard looked at me with barely concealed suspicion. Miss Rianne Cruz? I asked in my broken Tagalog. Nandito ba siya? The guard shook his head. Hindi ko kilala. He didn't know her. But she'd lived here for 2 years, according to her stories. How could the security guard not know someone who'd lived in his building for 2 years? By Friday, I was calling hospitals. American looking for girlfriend. I explained to anyone who would listen. Young woman, 24, long dark hair. The words felt foreign in my mouth. Girlfriend. Like I was a teenager instead of a grown man whose hands shook every time his phone buzzed with a notification that wasn't from her. I messaged her sister on Facebook, the one she'd mentioned having problems with her husband. Hi, I'm Dennis, Rianne's boyfriend. Is she okay? I haven't heard from her in days. The response came quickly. Who is this? I don't have a sister named Rianne. I stared at the message until the words blurred. No sister named Rianne. But she'd talked about her sister constantly. The fights with her husband, the money problems, the late-night phone calls, seeking advice. Friday night, I sat in my apartment drinking beer and trying to make sense of the pieces that didn't fit. The building where she supposedly lived, but the guard didn't know her. The sister who claimed not to exist. The phone calls at strange hours, the passwords, the evasive answers. Saturday morning, she walked in like nothing had happened. Hi, baby, she said, dropping her bag by the door and moving toward me for a kiss as if she'd just stepped out for groceries. I pulled back. Where were you? I texted you, she said, frowning. About my uncle. What uncle? What text? She showed me her phone. A message sent Friday afternoon. Uncle had stroke. At hospital. Will call soon. I never got this, I said, showing her my phone. No message. Network problems, maybe? You know how unreliable Globe can be. I studied her face, looking for tells, for cracks in the story. She looked tired, stressed, but genuine. Her eyes were red-rimmed like she'd been crying. I was terrified, I said. I thought something happened to you. I called hospitals. Her face crumbled. Oh, Dennis, I'm so sorry. It was chaos. Uncle Roberto is my mother's brother, and when they called to say he'd had a stroke, I just panicked. I threw some things in a bag and caught the first bus to Baton. You could have called. I tried. The signal in the hospital was terrible, and I was so scared. He's like a father to me. She was crying now, real tears streaming down her cheeks. I should have found a way to reach you. I'm so sorry. I pulled her into my arms, feeling her small body shake against mine. Is he okay? He's stable. But it was touch and go for a while. We all took shifts sitting with him. I messaged your sister, I said carefully. On Facebook. She went very still. Which sister? I thought you only had one sister. I have two sisters. One doesn't use Facebook much. The other one, we don't talk anymore. Family drama. She pulled back to look at me. Which one did you message? I don't know. I just searched for your last name and found someone who looked like she might be related. Probably Rika. She's been angry with me ever since I started dating foreigners. She thinks I'm embarrassing the family. Rianne wiped her eyes. She probably told you she doesn't know me, right? I nodded, feeling foolish for doubting her. That's Rika. She's been pretending I don't exist for months. That night, she made love to me like she was trying to apologize with her entire body. Desperate and urgent and achingly tender. Afterwards, she lay with her head on my chest, tracing patterns on my skin. I never want to scare you like that again, she whispered. You're too important to me. Just promise me you'll try to communicate next time. Even if it's hard, I promise. But as she fell asleep in my arms, I couldn't shake the feeling that I'd missed something important. The timeline didn't quite work. The story had too many convenient explanations. And somewhere in the back of my mind, a small voice whispered what I wasn't ready to hear. People who tell the truth don't need so many stories to make it believable. You need to get back out there, mate, Craig said, gesturing with his San Miguel beer. We were sitting on my balcony, the Manila heat making everything shimmer. My friend had come up from Cebu for the weekend, and Rianne had conveniently had family obligations. Again, I don't need to get back anywhere. I've got Rianne. Craig raised an eyebrow. Do you, though? When's the last time you actually saw her? I thought about it. 3 days ago? 4? She'd been busy lately. More family emergencies, more teaching obligations, more last-minute changes to plans we'd made. She's going through a lot with her family, I said. Right. Craig pulled out his phone. Look, I'm not judging, but have you considered keeping your options open, just in case? Craig, no. Hear me out. I met this incredible woman on Bumble last week. Teacher, educated, speaks perfect English. These apps aren't all bar girls and scammers, you know. I watched him swipe through profiles, his face lit up with the possibility each new photo represented. I don't need a dating app. I have someone. Sure, but where is she? It's Saturday night, and you're drinking beer with your mate instead of with your girlfriend. The words stung because they contained enough truth to hurt. She's with her family. She's always with her family. Craig looked up from his phone. When's the last time she introduced you to any of them? Never, I realized. In 8 months of dating, I'd never met her parents, her sisters, her mysterious cousin. Never been invited to family gatherings or introduced to her friends. I was a separate part of her life, carefully compartmentalized. Maybe I should reactivate my profile, I said, surprising myself, just to see what's out there. Craig grinned. That's the spirit. What app were you on before? Bumble, mostly. Some others. I downloaded the app again while Craig went to the bathroom. Just curiosity, I told myself. Just to see how the dating landscape had changed since I'd been out of it. My profile was still there, dormant but recoverable. I updated my photos, changed my bio slightly, and started swiping. The third profile to appear made my blood freeze. Rianne. Unmistakably, undeniably Rianne. Same smile, same eyes, but a different name. Maria Santos. 24. Her bio read, looking for something real. No games, no drama. Please be genuine and serious about relationships. No old men, please. No old men, please. I stared at the screen until my eyes watered. The photos were recent. She was wearing the necklace I'd bought her for her birthday last month. In one picture, she was sitting in what looked like a hotel room, not the family home she'd described or even my apartment. She looked happy, radiant, available. Craig returned from the bathroom and found me staring at my phone like it had just exploded in my hands. "Mate, you look like you've seen a ghost." "I think I have," I whispered, turning the screen toward him. Craig looked at the profile, then at me, then back at the profile. "Fuck. No old men," I read aloud. "No old men, please." "Dennis, I'm sorry. I had no idea. How long do you think she's been active on this?" My voice sounded strange, distant. "The photos look recent." Craig checked the profile details. "Says active within the last hour. Within the last hour." While I was sitting here talking about her, missing her, making excuses for her absence, she was online looking for someone new. Someone younger. Someone who wasn't an old man from West Virginia who'd been foolish enough to think age didn't matter to her. "There could be an explanation," Craig said weakly. "What explanation could there possibly be? Maybe she never deleted her profile? Some people forget to. She updated the photos, Craig. She's wearing the fucking necklace I bought her." I scrolled through the other images. Her at a restaurant I'd never been to. Her on a beach I'd never visited. Her life continuing in spaces that didn't include me, documented for other men to see, to want, to pursue. "I need to think," I said, closing the app. But even with the screen dark, I could see her face. That smile I'd thought was just for me. Broadcast to every man in Manila looking for a young woman to make them feel special. Craig stayed another hour, trying to talk me through it, offering theories that grew increasingly implausible. Maybe it was identity theft. Maybe someone was using her photos. Maybe it was a misunderstanding. But I knew better. Deep down, in the place where truth lives regardless of how much we try to bury it, I knew exactly what I was looking at. Evidence. Proof of what I'd been too afraid to see for months. After Craig left, I sat alone on the balcony, staring out at the city lights. Somewhere out there, she was probably messaging other men, telling them the same things she'd told me, about wanting something real, about not caring about money, about just wanting to be loved. The lies weren't even creative. They were efficient, recycled. She'd probably used the same lines on dozens of men, the same scripts that had made me feel so special, so chosen. I opened the app again, took a screenshot of her profile, then deleted the app entirely. But the image burned in my memory. Her face, her lie of a name, her promise to someone else that she was looking for something real. "No old men, please." The phrase echoed in my head as I went to bed alone in the apartment where her things still lived, where her toothbrush still sat next to mine, where everything looked exactly the same but felt completely different. I'd found her. Or rather, I'd found the truth. And now I had to decide what to do with it. I waited 2 days before saying anything. 2 days of watching her move through my apartment like nothing had changed, listening to her talk about her students and her family and her plans for the weekend. 2 days of studying her face, looking for cracks in the performance. "We need to talk," I said Sunday evening as she settled onto the couch with her laptop. "About what?" She didn't look up from her screen. I pulled out my phone, opened the screenshot, and set it on the coffee table in front of her. Her fingers stopped moving across the keyboard. For a moment, neither of us spoke. "Maria Santos?" I said quietly. She glanced at the screen, then back at her laptop. So, that's all you have to say?" She closed the laptop and looked at me directly for the first time in minutes. Her expression wasn't shame or guilt or even surprise. It was annoyance, like I'd interrupted something important with something trivial. "What do you want me to say, Dennis?" "I want you to explain. I want you to tell me why you're on a dating app looking for someone new while we're supposedly building a life together." She shrugged. Actually shrugged. "I never said we were exclusive." The words hit me like a physical blow. "What? You assumed we were exclusive." "I never said that. Rayanne, you live here half the time. You have a drawer. You have a toothbrush. You tell me you love me. I do love you. That doesn't mean I'm not keeping my options open." I stared at her, searching for some trace of the woman who'd cried in my arms, who'd told me I made her feel safe, who'd promised she'd never leave me. This stranger wearing her face was calm, matter of fact, almost bored. What about all the things you said? About wanting something real? About age not mattering? Age matters to everyone, Dennis. I just didn't want to hurt your feelings. And the money? The 50,000 pesos for your student loans? What about it? Did you even have student loans? Or was that just another lie? She stood up, gathering her laptop and her bag. I think we're done here. Answer the question. She turned to face me, and for the first time since I'd known her, I saw who she really was. No mask, no performance, no carefully crafted vulnerability. Just cold calculation. You wanted a young, pretty girlfriend to make you feel special. I gave you that. You wanted someone to play house with, someone to fill your empty apartment and your empty bed. I gave you that too. Her voice was steady, almost clinical. I never promised you forever, Dennis. I never promised you anything except what I delivered. But you took my money. You said you loved me. I needed the money. And I did love you, in my way. But love doesn't pay bills or build futures. So, what was I to you? Just a paycheck? You were a nice man who was lonely and generous. There's nothing wrong with that arrangement. Arrangement. The word hung in the air between us like poison. The disappearing for days. The mysterious family emergencies. Were any of those real? She paused at the door. Does it matter now? It matters to me. I was seeing other people, Dennis. Building other relationships. Keeping my options open. She looked back at me with something that might have been pity. Did you really think a 24-year-old woman would want to spend the rest of her life with a 57-year-old retiree? Really? The question hung in the silence that followed. Had I really believed that? Or had I just wanted to believe it so badly that I'd ignored every red flag, every inconsistency, every moment that didn't quite add up? I thought you were different, I said. I am different. I'm honest about what this was. You're the one who built fairy tales around it. She opened the door, then turned back one last time. For what it's worth, you were sweet, kinder than most of them. But kindness doesn't make someone compatible, and loneliness doesn't make love real. And then she was gone, taking her bag and her laptop and leaving behind only the faint scent of her shampoo and the echo of truths I wasn't ready to hear. I sat alone in my apartment, surrounded by the remnants of our shared life. Her toothbrush still in the bathroom, her clothes still in my closet, her coffee mug still in the sink from that morning when she'd kissed my cheek and told me she'd be back for dinner. But she wouldn't be back. Not for dinner, not for anything, because there had never been an us to begin with. Just me, desperate and lonely, and her, practical and opportunistic. Just an arrangement I'd mistaken for love. I picked up her coffee mug and hurled it against the wall. The ceramic shattered, pieces scattering across the floor like the fragments of everything I'd believed about my life here. The sound echoed in the silence, sharp and final. The truth came in pieces over the following weeks, each revelation cutting deeper than the last. It started with Jim from the third floor, an Australian retiree who knocked on my door with a concerned expression. "Mate," I heard shouting the other night. "Everything all right?" "Fine," I lied. "Just a misunderstanding with my girlfriend." Jim's face changed. "Filipino girl? Young? Pretty? About this tall?" He held his hand at shoulder height. My stomach dropped. "You know Rianne? Rianne? The one I knew called herself Carmen. But same girl, I think. Dark hair, always on her phone?" Jim shifted uncomfortably. "She was seeing me for about 3 months earlier this year. Until I found out about the others." "Others?" "Plural. How many others?" "At least 2 that I knew about. Maybe more." Jim looked at me with genuine sympathy. "She had a system, mate. Different names, different stories for different guys. Always some family emergency when she needed money." I invited him in, poured us both scotch, and listened as he outlined the same pattern I'd lived through. The vulnerable beginning, the gradual integration into his life, the mysterious family problems, the requests for money, even the same disappearing acts. "The uncle with the stroke," I said. "Did she use that one on you?" "Different uncle, different illness. But yeah, that was her go-to when she needed to vanish for a few days." Jim took a long sip of his drink. "Probably cycling between all of us. Keeping the stories straight. How long did it take you to figure it out? Found her on Tinder with a different name. Same as you, I'm guessing?" I nodded, feeling sick. "The thing is," Jim continued, "she wasn't even the worst I've encountered here. At least she provided something in return. Some of these girls just take the money and run. But that didn't make me feel better. If anything, it made me feel worse. I wasn't even significant enough to warrant a unique scam. I was just another lonely foreigner, another mark in a well-practiced routine. Over the next few days, I found myself seeking out other expats in my building, in nearby bars, in the Facebook groups for foreigners living in Manila. The stories were depressingly similar. Different names, different faces, but the same essential patterns. Young, local women targeting older foreign men, offering companionship and affection in exchange for financial support and security. The mistake we make, explained Robert, a German man in his 60s, is thinking we're special, that somehow our situation is different, that the girl who chooses us is different. But some of them must be genuine, I protested. Maybe, but how would you know? If you're looking for love and they're looking for opportunity, how would you ever tell the difference? I thought about that question for days. How would you know? Every gesture of affection could be calculated. Every moment of intimacy could be performance. Every declaration of love could be tactical. The worst part wasn't the money I'd lost or even the humiliation of being played. The worst part was the doubt it cast over everything. Had any of it been real? The conversations, the laughter, the quiet moments when she'd seemed genuinely happy? Or had it all been an elaborate performance designed to extract maximum benefit from my loneliness? I started going through our text messages, looking for clues I'd missed. The timing of her responses, the patterns in her availability, the way certain topics always got deflected or changed. Now that I knew what to look for, the signs were everywhere. Glaring, obvious signs that I'd ignored because I'd wanted so desperately to believe in what we had. One evening, I found myself standing in my bathroom, staring at her toothbrush. Such a small thing, but it had meant everything to me. Evidence that someone cared enough to stay, to build something lasting. Now it just looked pathetic. A prop in an elaborate deception. I threw it in the trash, then pulled it back out. I wasn't ready to erase every trace of her yet, even though I knew she'd already erased every trace of me from her life. Moved on to the next lonely man, started fresh with a new name and new stories, and the same practiced vulnerability that had captured me so completely. I sent her one final message. I just needed to know if any of it was real, if I mattered at all. She never replied. 3 months later, I was walking alone through Ayala Triangle, watching the evening joggers circle the paths under the glow of streetlights. The park was alive with couples holding hands, families sharing picnics, groups of friends laughing over shared meals. All the life I'd thought I was missing, all the connection I'd been so desperate to find. My phone buzzed with a notification from Bumble. I'd reactivated my profile 2 weeks after Rianne left, thinking I needed to get back out there, prove to myself that I could find something real. But every conversation felt hollow. Every potential match carried the weight of suspicion. How do you trust again when trust had burned you so completely? I pulled out my phone and deleted the app entirely. No more swiping, no more hoping, no more trying to manufacture connection through carefully curated photos and optimized profiles. If love was going to find me, it wouldn't be through algorithms and manufactured meetings. The truth was, I'd been looking for the wrong thing in the wrong way. I'd been so focused on not being alone that I'd forgotten how to be comfortable with myself. Rianne hadn't broken my heart because she'd been dishonest. She'd broken it because I'd given her all the power to define my worth, my happiness, my sense of being whole. "Sir, picture?" A young photographer approached with a professional camera, offering to capture tourists against the Manila skyline. "Just me," I said. "Just you, just me." He looked confused but took the photo anyway. Me, standing alone under the city lights, not waiting for someone to complete the frame. Not half of something waiting to become whole, just me. Walking back to my apartment, I thought about all the things I'd learned since coming to the Philippines. How to navigate jeepneys and tricycles. How to order food in broken Tagalog. How to find decent coffee in a country that preferred instant. How to be alone without being lonely. That last lesson had taken the longest to learn. Back home, I made dinner for one without feeling sorry for myself, opened a beer and sat on my balcony without wishing someone was there to share it. I'd lived 57 years before meeting Rianne, and most of those years had been full and meaningful and complete. One 8-month relationship, no matter how intense or painful, couldn't erase decades of experience and growth. My phone rang. Unknown number. "Hello, Dennis?" The voice was familiar but nervous. It's Rianne. My chest tightened, but not with the desperate hope I might have expected. Instead, I felt something like resignation. What do you want? I wanted to talk. To explain. There's nothing to explain. You were honest about what it was. I was the one living in a fantasy. It wasn't all fake, she said quietly. Some of it was real. Which parts? She was quiet for a long moment. Does it matter now? No, I realized. It doesn't. I'm sorry, she said, for hurting you. You didn't deserve that. No, I didn't. But I also didn't deserve to put that kind of pressure on you. Expecting you to fix all my problems, to make me feel young again, to give my life meaning. I looked out at the city lights, each one representing someone else's story, someone else's struggles and joys and complicated relationships. That wasn't fair to either of us. Are you happy now? She asked. I thought about the question. Was I happy? Not in the desperate, grasping way I'd been when we were together. Not dependent on someone else's attention and affection to feel valuable. But content, maybe. Peaceful. I'm learning to be, I said. What about you? I'm trying to figure things out. Being more honest with people about what I want and what I can offer. That's good. Dennis. Yeah, thank you. For being kind. Even when you found out. Take care of yourself, Rianne. I hung up and sat in the quiet of my apartment. Her things were long gone, but the space didn't feel empty anymore. It felt like mine. My books on the shelves, my photos on the walls, my life shaped by my choices rather than someone else's needs or expectations. Tomorrow I'd wake up and make coffee for one. I'd eat breakfast while reading the news on my tablet. I'd maybe visit the art museum I'd been meaning to see, or try that new restaurant in Poblacion. Not because I was trying to fill time or distract myself from loneliness, but because these things interested me. Because I was building a life that belonged entirely to me. I'd been looking for someone to save me from my own life. Instead, I'd learned to save myself. The Philippines hadn't given me the love story I'd expected, but it had given me something more valuable. The understanding that I didn't need saving at all. Some evenings I still felt the ache of missing what Rianne and I had shared, or what I'd thought we'd shared. But more often, I felt grateful. Grateful for the hard lesson about the difference between loneliness and solitude. Grateful for learning that love built on desperation isn't love at all. Grateful for discovering that the most important relationship I could cultivate was the one with myself. The city hummed outside my windows. 8 million people living their own complicated stories of connection and heartbreak and hope. I was just one of them now. No longer separate. No longer searching for someone else to make me feel like I belonged. I belonged to myself. And for the first time in years, that felt like enough.